You start.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Here we are at Sandara again.
Yeah. Are you going to welcome them?
Do we have like a name for our people? Gritty Mamas, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gritties? I don't know.
Gritty? I don't know. Okay. It's another late night-ish. We're here for all the Gritty Mamas. Welcome. We're glad you're here. And while we're at it, let's like and subscribe while I'm thinking about it.
Yes, good job.
Although-
something we always forget.
Yeah, but I've got to tell you. So my 9-year-old, he was like, he has to listen to something going to sleep every night. And he's like, Mom, I got to listen to your podcast. I was like, it's not really geared for kids. And he was like, I got to listen to it. And he's fallen asleep to all of them. He thinks he's listened to every episode. I'm not really sure he has, but he said a few things and I was like,
Really?
yeah, I'm glad.
Did he hear the one about the neighbor?
Yes, that's his favorite episode.
Of course.
He says it's funny.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, who am I raising? So
Shoot, yeah, it's like a movie, right? He can eat his popcorn while he listens along. My goodness. Speaking of that, is that where we want to go right from here? Or do we wait for just a minute to
I mean,
just like
it's a
warm
natural
everybody up?
segue. They've had one episode since we talked about the neighbor last time.
Yes, and we are coming upon spring break. Spring break is on the horizon. Is it for you this week or next week?
It's coming up. It's not this week.
Okay. So we had to kind of come in here at Sundara a little bit earlier than we normally would just because Carley's going out of town.
Yep.
And Whitney and Mark are going out of town. Again, we're here at Sundara Medical Clinic in Bluffdale, which is your one-stop shop for wellness, aesthetics, and
Mental health, hormone health,
primary
all the
care.
things.
Yes, I have my return appointment in a couple of weeks to see how my hormones
Yeah.
have responded. And speaking of follow-up, if you are interested, I've had a few people message me about this. Adana has a spinal fracture, right? She's had that for a long
Yes,
time. So we
yes.
had a MRI this morning. And
When do you find out results?
it just got it back.
Oh.
I can't read it very well, but it's like, now she has a bulging disc.
Nuh-uh. Are you for real?
So I sent a message to the PT and I was like, how does this even happen?
What?
How does she have a bulging disc when she has done nothing? I mean, he was like, no, the MRI looks good. It's healing. The fracture, it's healing, and the bone marrow edema, which is swelling in the bone marrow, it has gone down.
Good.
He said, in bulging disc, I'm not too worried about that. Could like clear up within a month, and it could come back. He's like, I think we're all walking around with bulging discs every now, so
Okay.
he wasn't worried about that, but
Interesting.
it has been 6 months for this sucker to even start healing. And he's like, no, it's not so much, at least ChatGPT said, it's not so much a matter of rest. Now it's a matter of building the muscles back up, because now she's overcompensating, right? Mm-hmm. And, she got a little job at a bakery, and so she's on her feet, and she just will message me and say, my back is killing me. And I'm like, how is it killing? Like, you've done
Just
nothing.
standing.
Just standing there.
So we've dealt with some soccer injuries in the past, right? And what we've learned, so there's like ankle injuries everywhere, knee injuries everywhere. You cannot strengthen your knee or your ankle, right? So you strengthen all the muscles
Everything around it.
Exactly. And so you have to make sure in these situations that you're working on muscle strength.
Yeah. So now I'm like, Adana, now it's time like to slowly go back into like working out, and because everything has atrophied.
Yeah.
I remember when I broke my wrist and it was just like in a sling for weeks.
Yeah.
That my hand, the muscle in between my thumb and my pointer finger, this was like concave, like a canoe. Because the PT was like, look, there's no muscle there. I was like, what? Like, you don't think about the muscles right there.
You
in between.
use it or you lose it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was totally like a canoe, because it was just like Skeletor with no muscle,
That is why I have not done GLP-1s, to be honest with you.
It's because have the fat pads gone.
Well, you lose the buccal fat in your face, and you cannot get that back.
Yeah.
And then you lose your muscle everywhere. And the older you get, the harder it is to get that muscle back. So if you're in your 60s and 70s and you haven't kept up on your muscles and you're on it, they're gone. Like, you're not really going to get your muscles back.
It's only a matter of time before they come back with new studies that show this is like not a dig against people that are doing peptides or GLP-1s, but
I love so many people that are using them.
My whole family's using them, you know, and people that I love too.
There are lots of benefits to them. Like I continue to be like, am I still
tempted?
Fighting it?
Yeah.
My husband really doesn't want me to do it.
Yeah.
He's like, if you get sick on it, like I can't be both mom and dad.
Yeah.
And we all know that I don't function when I'm sick, like throwing up, like pregnancy sick.
Yeah.
No, like I'm down. Yeah. I'm down for the count.
Yeah.
My kids need a mom. So there's that part of it, but it's really, I mean, Whitney was telling me last time we were here that there are studies on tirzepatide.
Oh yeah.
Or not tirzepatide.
She was able to get pregnant.
Yes. Yeah. So on, the tirzepatide is the generic version. It's Mounjaro. That's what it is. Mm. There's 30 years of studies on that, she says. So you can go and look at those and see how that, I mean, there's a give and take to everything.
I mean, it's everything, right? You become addicted to anything.
Well,
too much of something is not good.
You mess with your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your metabolism, all of these hormones work together. And, if you may have to stay on these meds your whole life or you will gain the weight back. Mm-hmm. And my problem is I don't want to lose muscle.
Right. I work too dang hard for it.
Yeah. Well, when you're losing the weight, you're losing some fat, but you're also losing some muscle. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, really hard. Metabolic, that's what I'm looking for. In metabolic health, you have to be very careful because you can mess everything up and you lose too much fat or too much muscle and not enough fat. Yeah. And getting the muscle back is really hard. Yeah. And then it's your metabolism. And then, but for diabetics, it's always basically worth it, right? You have to balance the good and the bad, the unintended consequences. And you just have to say, I have these. I mean, I talked to somebody who, she only needed to lose 10 pounds. And I think she looks very thin myself, but her back doesn't hurt anymore. Yeah. Because it has anti-inflammatory part to it, right? And then there's women who have been able to get pregnant. And I have been told that if you're too thin, if you're very thin and you can't get pregnant, to gain 5 pounds or 10 pounds. And if you're overweight and you can't get pregnant, to lose. And that, it changes your metabolism and your, the hormones in your body enough that it can jumpstart it. Wow. And so between that and the medicine itself, you're hearing people get pregnant, right? Which is another reason why I don't want to take it.
Yeah. Seriously, nor me. I'm just afraid of what will happen in 10 years because I know that there are certain ones that build muscle and it also builds everything else in there. So if you have tumors or you're prone to them or something that's already in there, there are peptides grow that too.
Yes, I'm terrified of that too. Yeah.
Anyway, that was quite the tangent. Total tangent. We're squirreling over here. That all stemmed from Adana's back. So it's healing, but she's not a happy camper because she's not ready to go back to full activity. And the reason that I bring all this up is that it was a stressful morning. And I don't mean for this podcast to always be about my stress and my challenging days. But you are a
single mom of 8 kids. Come on.
It is. I was texting Carley today, I cannot keep doing this. It is too much. I am on overload, constant overstimulation, overwhelmed, undervalued, and then being harassed. I'm just over it. So Adana's getting this MRI taken, or she's getting the MRI, and I am in my circle with more cops. And so...
Wait, so did she drive herself there?
She did, yeah. Okay. She was supposed to wait for me, but I'm actually glad that it happened that way because police showed up at my door. In fact, I should back up again. I'm always backing up. I was at the gym and Adana called me and she's like, there's a detective out in the front.
This is before her appointment?
Yes.
Okay.
And she stayed home from school because she was going to this appointment.
Okay.
And I was like, I first thought that it was an officer for animal control. That's always where my mind goes because we're dog sitting. So it's happened before, right? And animal control, they are officers. And they work side by side with police, which I didn't know. So I was afraid it was that. But it was a detective and he got on the phone and he's just like, hi, I just want to let you know that we just served your neighbor. I was like, oh. I was told that I wasn't going to be informed. Maybe he just did it as a courtesy. But he just, because we were right there next door, he came over and just said, we served him. And, you know, I was trying to ask him some questions, but I was like right in the middle of the gym where it's loud and there's all the machines banging around me.
You're lucky if you can talk on the phone at the gym.
I know. So I'm like plugging my ears and like running over into a corner. And I was like, so you just served him? I said, does the 10 days, because he has 10 days to object or to request a hearing. I said, does that start when it was filed and granted, or does that start today when he was served? And he's like, today when it was served. I was like, ugh, because it was almost 10 days.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I was like, come on. And I said, okay, the order says stay away from and no contact. I said, okay, that's so vague. Like, what does that mean? Stay away. And he was vague himself. He's like, I don't know. I mean, you know, just you stay on your property and he'll stay on his, but you just need to know that this order goes both ways. So you don't talk to him. He doesn't talk to you.
Sure.
So I was like, oh, that's no problem. I have noticed, you know, so anyway, then
You're not going to go and seek him out.
Oh, heck no.
Good night.
And I think this is where the challenge for me lies, because his mother is 87 and she is back at home. So she's been in rehab for her broken foot for the last 6 weeks, learning how to walk again. I mean, she's 87, you know. He's moved back, by the way, because the detective told me that too, or maybe it was an officer.
Does that mean he lost his job?
Probably.
Yeah.
So I had filmed him moving clothes in and out and laundry baskets, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's moving out. He was moving back in. Ugh. I was like, you lost your freaking job again. I mean, he had to have. I highly doubt he would have said, I've got to be home with my mommy. You know, there's plenty of people. I want to
go and live next door to those 8 kids that I hate.
It's because he, in my opinion, it's elder abuse, you know, because we have heard, or other neighbors have heard him saying, hey mom, where's your checkbook?
What?
You know? So, and she's not always lucid. She's lost her short-term memory. Oh. She can remember when she was 5, but she can't remember yesterday. Yeah. So I'm like, this is just
very
great.
typical.
Yeah. So I was telling the other neighbors, look, apparently he's moved back in. He's there for who knows how long to stay, you know, but I guess my hang up is that, you know, he's there, I'm sure, taking care of her in some way, probably not kindly. Probably, I don't know if he's helping her to the bathroom. I don't know if she can do that herself. I don't know if she's got a caretaker coming. But it's like, now I've got this, like, do I sit here and call the cops anytime he makes contact? I am within my rights too.
Sure.
But then he's taken to jail and she's alone and going to fall down the stairs again. Do I care? Should I care? You know, and I'm like in this like crap, because he's there with her all the time because he has no job. Anyway, I don't even want to give him all this attention and have 2 podcasts even talking about this creep. But then, you know, Adana goes for her MRI and I go back home, and then 3 cops pull into the neighborhood. And I was like, oh, and I went out to the driveway and I was like, are you guys here for me? And they're like, no, we're here for your neighbor. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then they come back and talk to me after they've been with him.
Because he called them.
He called them. Like, conveniently, as soon as he gets this protective order.
Of course.
He calls them. And I was like, and to say what? What did he tell you? Well, he wants you guys to stop, you know, stay off of his property and stay away. I'm like, I said, did you guys look at the reports? Did you see that there's a civil stalking injunction filed and granted? And they're like, we haven't really looked at anything. We just came out, you know, answer the call. I was like,
they were detectives?
No, just officers.
Oh, they were officers.
I don't really know the difference between sergeant, detective, sheriff, but you do.
If it's a detective, at least where I'm from, detectives don't come in.
I'm sure they are. They were just probably office. Yeah.
They're plain clothes usually.
Okay. So they were officers.
Okay.
All of them. And they just said, I said, again, this is retaliation. This is retaliation for him now. Isn't it interesting that an hour after he's served, you're here? And he's going to talk about soccer balls again, denting his fence.
Were these guys brand new, or
no?
were
One
they
of them
gray-haired?
In fact, one of the guys looked at me and he's like, "Hey, if you post this to one of the officers, was like, if you post this to Instagram, make sure you get my good side." I was like, "You've been here before. I recognize you." He's like, "Yes, I have." He has probably seen himself on my Instagram.
Oh, funny.
And I'm trying to tag like Sandy City Police to like promote them and make buddies with the policemen, you know? So I was like, this is crazy. I said, there are 3 of you here right now, and I'm so sorry because this is the biggest waste of your time. I don't know if what he's complaining about now, because all of my kids are in school. And I said, at what point is this civil stalking injunction enforceable? I said, I showed him the order. I said, it just says stay away. It's vague. And then it says no contact. Don't email, text, communicate with me, or any of the kids. I was like, so what does that mean? Can he yell at us from his own driveway in his own garage at the kids in the circle doing sidewalk chalk? Because that's happened, or Xander's campaigning to be an SBO and he's working on his t-shirts to, market himself and he's yelling at him in the garage. Does that count? And they're like, yeah, just call us. And I'm like, I don't know. And then they said, but there is a difference between civil and, injunctions or civil and criminal.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, at what point is it criminal? Are you criminal? Is it criminal when they're arrested? And they're like, we don't know. We'd have to check the report, the injunction.
Right. They need to read this stuff. Right. So I think if they are up to date, the more you call them out there, the more they show up, the more familiar they're going to be with the case. And hopefully they read the previous reports. But the thing about cops, if they're not newbies, they are able to read the situation, and these people behave in a pattern, right? This is not the first guy like him that they've dealt with, right? So if you say he just got served an hour ago, they'll be like, yeah, that's predictable.
I mean, in fact, when I texted you and said that, you're like, of course he did. And I was like,
yeah.
Like, cause you knew, cause I was like, why would he do that? Why? It's the same story. Like, it's old news that you've already reported that we are awful. Apparently.
Yeah, but he is trying to do what you're trying to do. He's trying to build his own case. He's trying to get them out there on his behalf. He's trying to make you look like the bad guy. You look crazy, right?
Yeah.
And he probably was thinking that he had the upper hand, and now he doesn't.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get the upper hand back.
Oh my gosh.
But he can't handle somebody exercising authority over him.
Right. Yeah.
So,
let alone a woman.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my gosh. So I guess what I kind of wanted to talk about today was give you an update on that, because it hasn't gotten any better yet, but he hadn't been served yet either. And maybe that will make a difference now.
If there's anybody listening, I want somebody who is familiar with Utah law to tell me if you have a stalking injunction already approved by the judge, whatever that word is.
Does it go into effect then?
Well, my question is, he does not own that house.
Yeah. And I told him that. I told the police. I was like,
what did they say?
Well, at first I said, I know he's making these demands that we can't go on his property. Again, we don't want to, and we don't, but we can't go on his property. We can't contact him. And I said, but he does not even own the home.
Yeah.
His mom does. And they said, well, his mom requested the same thing. And I said, really? And I kind of chuckled, because I'm like,
she has dementia.
Yeah. It's classic coercive control.
Yeah.
She is locked in, under his
thumb.
And she's afraid of him too. I've seen it. I've seen him yelling at her. I've seen him cursing at us, like horrible things in front of her. I've heard him curse at her, but I've heard.
Yeah, what's she going to do?
Yeah. She's 87 years old and barely lucid. She has her short-term memory is gone. And so she can remember long, long ago. She can't remember that he's even been arrested. Or maybe she doesn't even remember that. In fact, when my neighbors went to go visit her, they're like, she recognized us. Like, she's just going, slowly. And so I was like, really? I'm sure she said, yes, keep those kids. Because, we have raked her leaves in the fall.
Yeah,
we have shoveled her sidewalks.
She gives you fruit at Christmas, you said.
Yeah. Apples and oranges at Christmas. And she comes over to the house in her bare feet, will knock on my door, and she gives us the stickers to my little girls that she gets in the mail, as freebie little stickers. And I've helped her when she had sepsis. Like, we've been neighborly.
Right.
And so I can't imagine that she's like, yeah, get them off of my... I'm sure she wasn't. I'm sure she just said it. I'm sure she did say it, because...
I'm not.
In fact...
He could say that she said it.
That's true. Maybe they didn't... I don't even know. Yeah, he was probably like, no, you can't.
It's alleged from a literal criminal.
Well, and my good neighbor, Scott, who we've talked about, I call him Super Scott, he told me today that he tried to call Sandy because he didn't even know she was home. And he's like, I tried to call her and Brett answered. And as soon as I said, hey, can I talk to Sandy, please? He hung up. So it's control. And he's going to control her checkbook. He's going to control probably what she eats. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he starves her. You know, it's happened before. It's happened in my family.
Well, you know that like the easiest victims on the planet other than babies are the elderly.
Yep.
Right? They are just as much reliant upon us and the people who love them as children, as babies are, right? And so, she is the perfect victim.
Yep.
What is she going to do?
Yeah.
And chances are her other kids have no idea what's going on.
They don't even, she's estranged from her daughter, and the other son lives in a different state. So we're left with lovely Brett, who is an abusive, controlling, horrible person.
I mean, can we call him a criminal since he's been arrested?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So at that point, is it criminal, and can it be enforced? Like, I'm so sick of asking if something can be enforced when it's granted by a court.
Right. No, well, there's so much of that, and there's so few people to actually do, like, there's not enough manpower to enforce all the things that should be enforced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why we keep saying nobody's coming to save you, because there's just not enough people. Mm-hmm. But that's why you create this pattern, right? That's why you're doing this.
Yeah, that's why we talked about documentation, and that that's all I can do, I guess, is to protect myself and keep the pattern going and hope that it's not too late, or that I, didn't record something sooner than I should have, or later than I should have. And I just hope it's not like he would have been arrested on the 10th time, but it just so happens that he kills us on the 9th. You know what I mean? Like, and I can't go there, but that's where you go when you're scared. You
cannot let yourself go there, and you cannot live in fear.
Yeah.
And you have to have, I know you well enough to know that you are a prayerful, intentional mother, and you make choices very wisely. You're not making choices for any other reason other than the safety of your children.
Yeah.
Right. And so I believe, and I trust you, that if you felt like you needed to leave, if he was really going to be a threat, you would feel that same fire under your feet that you feel when the Spirit's telling you to do something else. Mm-hmm. Right. The Lord speaks to you in ways that you understand, in your language. And you recognize the Spirit when you are saying, do it now.
Yeah.
You know that feeling is coming from the Spirit. You've practiced it. Mm-hmm. And look what's happened because of it, right? And so you'll know if you need to do something different with Brett, you'll feel that fire under your feet, and you'll do it.
I hope so.
You will.
I just, there's so many times, even in, marriage with the petitioner, where you're juggling or waffling between turning the table over in the temple, or the money changers, or be good to those who despitefully use you. Mm-hmm. I don't know where that boundary is.
But this is more clear than that.
Yeah, this one is.
This is because you're messing
but then
with
you're
a whole lot of
pray
things.
For your enemies. I can pray for them, sure, but then I'm gonna still file the things and still not even look at him. I know, yeah, but
it does not mean be a victim.
Yeah, of course.
So my husband asked me a while ago, what is the purpose of prayer if God already knows?
Yeah, I've wondered the same thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm sure different people will say it differently, but one of the reasons is if you're praying for something, it's top of mind. It is on your heart and in your mind, and you're thinking about it. You're problem solving it, right? Like my dad, I would ask him a math problem that I couldn't get in high school, and he'd wake up with the answer at 2 a.m. His brain was working on it when he was asleep.
Yeah.
I think that's why meditation works, right?
I just don't know how to distinguish being neighborly and kind and loving my fellow man and being good to those who spitefully use me, and throwing the table in the temple, the money changing table. I don't know sometimes where that boundary is, and whether to pray for your enemies or love them and do good to them. Because I can't really do good to him. I can't even step onto his property. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, I think if we know ourselves and know where we are, we know what we're capable of. If we're honest with ourselves, we know when enough is enough, when it's too much. I have family members and experiences where I allow things to go on for a while because I can handle it. And it's like there's give and take in every relationship, right? Sometimes you're going to ask of them. Sometimes they're going to ask of you. Sometimes you feel like there's been too much asking. But maybe one day you'll be the one doing too much asking, right? And so as relationships ebb and flow, you pray for them, you let things go. But when you start to feel run down and taken advantage of and you can't go on anymore, that's where you draw the line.
Yeah.
You draw the line and say, I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to hope for the best. I'm going to keep doing what I know I need to do, but I will not be a victim anymore. I can't do any. I mean, I've ended friendships over that.
Yeah. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I hope I can get what I'm thinking out of my mouth. But when you say enough is enough, okay, I have to go back to being in my 20-week ultrasound appointment. And what do you do at the 20-week ultrasound?
Oh, you make sure everything is right. That's the one where I lost my baby.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a touchy subject, but like as a first-time mom, what are you excited about?
Oh, the gender.
The gender.
It used to be, now at like 10 weeks, they do a blood test and you find out.
Yes. But like if you were old school, if you don't have the money to pay for that genetic testing or, you know, to find out at fetal photo or whatever, at 20 weeks, you're all excited to go and find out the gender.
Yep.
That's all you really care about.
Yep.
I was like, she's doing all the anatomy scans and who cares?
Yeah.
But the
you
more,
expect the best too.
Yeah. Yeah. The more and more babies that I had, the more and more I dreaded that appointment. And my OBGYN said, it's because you know more.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And I was like, it's so true because now I'm finding out if the ventricles, is that it? The aorta, and if there's deformities.
Club foot.
Yeah, yeah. But that was like, you know, on baby number 7, but I was getting nervous on baby 3 and baby 4. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not, the gender is the least, like, they don't care about that.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
So my point to say of this is that I started dreading that appointment because I had more information now about what it was for and why we go to that appointment. And it had me thinking about, you know, I had someone counsel me and say, you know, in marriage, when you're arguing or you're in a fight or whatever, do all you can to remove the tension from the marriage. Yeah. And, you know, there's value to that. But also I took that as just kind of be quiet.
Be a doormat.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like that, right? Because I wouldn't argue back, or I would be quiet to keep the peace. We talked about peace versus keeping the peace and being, what was it, peacemaker and peacekeeping? Yes. Maybe we should link that one below. But I found myself, and I don't want to say submissive because I knew, you know, whether I was right or wrong, I wasn't going to argue it. I wasn't going to argue my point because I was trying to keep the peace. I was trying to remove the tension from the marriage. And
which, by the way, is not bad advice.
No.
If you know how to do it well. If by being told to keep the peace or remove the tension, your assumption or the conversation ends with that means you be quiet and you agree with everything they say, it's terrible advice. Yeah. But if you follow that up with, what do you need to remove the tension? You need a conversation. You need a nap. You need food. You need, like think through this. Yeah. And it doesn't mean, because you're growing farther apart the more silent you are, right? It should be remove the tension by spending time together, by having a conversation, right?
And that's why sometimes I struggle like saying to women and to all of you that are listening out there, like, if you need to get out and stand up for yourself and put your foot down. I mean, I'm not saying it to be like this aggressive, like, you know, up in their face and don't let a man tell you what to do. I'm not trying to be this hardcore feminist, but sometimes I'm like, am I encouraging women to stand up for themselves? Yes. But also if they didn't know to begin with that it's coercive control, or they don't know to begin with that they're being gaslit, or they don't know really that he is pushing his thumb down on their desires and ambitions, like, would it have been more peaceful if they don't know? Bliss is, you know, ignorance is bliss, you know?
No.
But now that they do know and they see, like, oh my gosh, I've been listening to the Gritty Mamas podcast and holy cow, I've realized in my marriage that he totally silences me or he dismisses me. Okay, and it wasn't until I came to my attention and now and then am I causing problems in people's marriages?
Okay, this is what everybody needs to know. Not everybody who does these things does it intentionally. Let's say that the wife that's realizing this has in-laws that do the exact same thing. They've been married for 45 years. They fight all of the time, and one of them does this one thing all the time, and the other one responds this other way. the other time, right? What do their kids do? What do their kids know? When I got married, I assumed that my husband would talk to me about everything and that we would be like, we would communicate the same, because my parents are talkers.
Because it was modeled.
My dad and I could both talk to a wall, right? That's why a podcast is I could just talk forever, right? And my mom, I think, learned it by being married to my dad, but that wasn't the culture in her family. But that's what I saw. So when I married a guy who's quiet, and I laugh now, but I'd be like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he'd be like, why are you telling me that? And I'm like, because we're together in the same room and I'm going to leave. That's weird. Like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. That's just what we did in my family, right? And so you have to understand, I think, giving people the benefit of the doubt before assuming they're doing it on purpose. Because if you assume that they're doing it knowingly and purposefully, then you're like assigning blame, and you're saying, I believe that they're intentionally trying to hurt me. They're hurting you, but don't assume they're doing it on purpose. And then you give it time and you sit with that. You leave it in a place of curiosity. And then you start talking and you say, do you realize that you do this? Or that when this happens, I feel this way? So this is why I love Jefferson Fisher, because Jefferson Fisher will say, okay, pause the conversation. If somebody says something really rude to you or condescending or whatever, you say, can you repeat that again? And they say it to themselves. They say it out loud and they hear it. Yeah. And they're like, oh, that didn't come out as I thought it did. Or he'll say nothing. Just say nothing and see what happens. Don't respond at all. Like, there's different ways that you can do it, and you bring it to their attention. And sometimes they just need to understand somebody else's perspective and how it's coming across. Yeah. It's all they know, right? Yeah. It's not that people are bad. It's that they don't know. Yeah. And you have to learn better. You have to learn together, but you have to see it. You have to have eyes to see and ears to hear.
The other problem is that some women cannot bring it up. I mean, I was in that situation. Sure. There's so many good men that are willing, and good women that are willing to listen to their partner and be like, I'm so sorry you felt like, and it has to be when emotions aren't heightened and the argument has, you know, diffused. But even then, it was hard to bring things up without defense.
Yes. I will tell you, I wanted to go to counseling for a long time before we actually did. It is usually, I would say usually the female, not always, that wants to go to counseling. One of the partners is always going to fight it. And I feel very grateful that my husband actually went eventually. So when you have two people who are willingly trying to work on things and seeing a flaw and wanting to fix it, that's beautiful. Yeah. Step number 1. Step number 2, do not go to counseling thinking it's the other person's fault, that you have no fault in it. Because luckily I talked to my sister who had recounted a situation, and she just said, this couple was always going to get divorced because he would go in and do everything that the therapist and she asked him to do. It was never enough. And she had nothing to do with it. She was never going to be part of the problem. They were never going to work out. And so I went and I was like, okay, I really think he's most of the problem. But then in sitting there, I was like, okay, I am part of the problem. I need to do these things differently. We all come to the table with assumptions, right? Yeah. We all come with the way we grew up and with how we assume the other person did or didn't or whatever, right? So realizing that you have a part to play.
But that's hard to, if I can give you some pushback, that's hard when there is, and you hate to say the word abuse because you just think of getting punched in the face. Yeah. But when there is, unrighteous dominion maybe, or just controlling men, it's hard to go into a therapy session or counseling and take on blame when you really have not done anything.
Except, to push back again, you can't always say that. You don't know yet, right? In the sense that, is he doing something wrong? Yeah, but was it a habit that he created because of how you responded? If you had responded earlier on in a different way, he may have not continued that. But
what if you felt like you couldn't communicate that because of the hostility?
I think it goes to, you have to assume some blame because you have to have a spine at some part. Is it because of early on you let him get away with things? Is it because there was miscommunication? I'm not saying that you did something wrong, like bad, evil, sinful, whatever. I'm saying there was a miscommunication. There's two parts, right? So he's reading you wrong, or you're reading him wrong, or there's something in there that you did or didn't do that had an effect on his behavior or his thought process or whatever, right?
I just say that because there's so many times where I again, I didn't want to create tension.
Right.
But, and going there and trying to communicate how it made me feel was not worth the wrath.
But what if you had done it earlier and you hadn't listened to that, remove the tension? What if you had created tension in order to ultimately remove it? What if you had handled it differently? What if you had taken the college course that I did that talked about being an active listener and all this stuff, and you had been trained and you said, this is going to be uncomfortable, petitioner, but we're going to talk about it for a minute, and you can be mad at me, right?
Yeah. And I did go there, but like you learn, that's what women that are in fight or flight, you learn how to survive.
Yeah. You have to, I would never blame the victim, right? I'm not blaming victims. What I'm saying is there's different paths throughout life, throughout marriages, throughout relationships. There's different things that you could say and do that have different, different futures. And it's not that it's ever too late, but you have to be able to say, like, my part in what I was able to see in myself was that I was saying and doing things. It was mostly things that I said to him that I was saying in jest because I was being passive aggressive because I was too fearful to tell him what really mattered to me.
Yeah.
I wanted him to know that this was important to me without ever having to come out and say it.
And make him feel bad
right. Or to have a hard conversation. Right. And so by doing that, I alluded to the way he interpreted it was, I am not safe to come and tell how he really feels because of how I was communicating that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm picking up what she's putting down. It was like, oh, well, if that's how she feels, I can't come talk to her about how I really feel about whatever, right? And so I just feel like it was helpful for me because I don't think that everybody who listens to this podcast is in a horrible situation.
I can only speak for myself and the women that are listening that have dealt with the same thing, where you have approached with softness and you have approached with preparation and like, look, can I have a conversation with you? Look, it really hurts when you do this. And if there's anything that I can do on my part to be better, and it's still met with rage, or it's still met with, don't talk to me, or how dare you? Like it's hard to continue.
It's met with offense in some way.
But always, or most of the time, and you don't know which Jekyll or Hyde you're going to get.
Right. And it's over time and it's awful.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're saying for, let's say that 5,000 people are going to listen to this. Maybe 50 of them, maybe 100, maybe 1,000 of them are experiencing what you are. But for the other ones who are listening to what we're talking about and they're seeing it in their spouse or whatever, it can be more harmful to assume the worst or to assume that you don't have any part to play, right? There are true victims, and I would never blame a victim. But I also want to empower people to say, we can have hard conversations. Yeah. Right? The part that I played in it was just because I love him, I didn't want to hurt him, and I wasn't practicing having hard conversations. Jefferson Fisher talks about not hiding from the hard conversations. Just have the hard conversation, right? And I think that we need to feel like part of empowering women is allowing them not just the understanding that they are worth it, that they deserve it as a human being, but that they are able to do it. Yeah. And to believe in their spouse and say they are too. We just have to get past that uncomfortable part. It is fixable.
So since I have therapy with you, I can't afford therapy, and the church is tapped out with therapy for me because they've spent a lot on me and my 8 children getting, different therapists, court-ordered therapists and all the things. And I know you're not trained necessarily. And I know that,
I've gone to 6 years of therapy myself. Yeah. But that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I've had 4 years now of legal experience, right? So there's just experience. But what do you say to someone like me who cannot, and I will say it wasn't every single time, but how do you go and approach someone like the petitioner? And I don't know if he's going to blow up in my face or not, and express something that needs to be talked about and can't wait anymore. And you get yelled at. What do you do in that situation to convey something that needs to be said?
Well, one of the things that I have
just learned, for the women out there, that the 50 maybe, or the 100 that are in my position or what I wasn't.
You need to make sure you're in a safe space. Safety is number one. You have to make sure that there's not going to be anything physically violent. And then you have to understand who the person is that you're dealing with, right? And there could be safer spaces than others. They could respond better to a family member or to a friend who urges them and counsels with them. And you could sidestep a little bit and say, hey, like when I started to have, without getting into too many specifics, when we started to need therapy, I went to my father-in-law in tears. And I just said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I know that he loves me. Again, I have fantastic in-laws, right? That's love and support us, and fantastic parents. And so it was easy to find somebody.
Yeah.
But I went to him and I said, this is what we're struggling with. What do I do?
Did he know that you did that? Would he have cared?
I'm pretty sure he knows.
I know, his but parents did he know when it happened?
No, he wasn't there with me in the moment.
Right. But did you ever say, hey, I went and talked to your dad?
I don't know if I did. It wasn't that big
because
of a deal.
I can tell you, like, I know we're totally different lives, but if I had done that, I would have been punished.
Yeah, you'd have to do it. It would have to be somebody that is very safe, right? That would allow you the freedom to do that, that wouldn't rat on you, you know. But my in-laws are the ones who found us the therapist. They had an in to the best therapist in the whole state of Utah, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and that had come through other family members. So anyway, but in that situation, they probably aren't going to go to therapy, but they might listen to somebody that they love and respect, another man per se, you know, somebody close to them, if you have a relationship with that person. If you cannot have a civil conversation where you can say, I mean, first of all, my mother-in-law, I hate this advice, but it's so true, and that's what makes it so painful. But when we got married, she was like, never have a conversation before you feed them. Like, before you feed like, in the Tall family, if they're hungry, they're hangry. You know what I mean? So don't try. You have to make sure you're not trying to talk to somebody about something serious when they're tired and hungry. That's never going to go over well. That expression of don't go to sleep angry, it's terrible. Do not listen to that advice. Go to bed. Wake up refreshed. Go at it in the morning. Come at it from a different angle, right? It's like my husband's favorite boss in the past would say, sleep on that email. Write it tonight. Yeah. Sleep on that email.
Yeah.
See how you think about it in the morning, right? It's that same kind of idea. So I think there's that kind of stuff where you set it up in the right. You don't have to cater, but you set it up so it's as they can be as physically ready for something hard. And then if you know your spouse and you know what they struggle with, you know what buttons not to push, and you start light. You don't have to go hard. If you haven't talked about something in 2 years, you don't come at them with 2 years worth of stuff. You just prick a little bit. Hey, can I and you can set aside time and space. I don't think this is the right time and space, but I need to talk to you about this one thing. And it's not, my dad, so ADHDers tend to be more sensitive. My dad says, at least when it comes to me, I don't know my siblings, but he said, whenever I would have to correct you on something, like let's say I get sent to my room because I'm being a turd, right? So he would come to my room in 10 or 15 minutes after I'd settled down, whatever. And then he would tell me like 5 good things about me before he would tell me one bad thing, right? So you are such a good big sister. You're so thoughtful. Thank you for helping your mom. Whatever. I'm so proud of you for this test. But next time when mom tells you to take off your shoes, just do it. Whatever it is, right? Yeah. It's like one small thing, because I think not just ADHDers, but most people are sensitive to criticism, because most of us, and I would bet that the petitioner is very aware of a lot of his flaws, because when you grow up in the way that he did, you have a lot of people probably telling you your flaws. But most of us are aware of our flaws. And so when people point them out, it feels so much harder. Yeah. And like you fly off the handle because you're like, I already know. I wish I could fix it, but I haven't been able to, you know what I mean? And if you approach somebody out of love and respect, and you say all of the good, genuine, you're not making the stuff up. Like, this isn't a conversation where I married you because I love this about you, and I love this about you, and I love this about you, but I am really struggling with this one thing, right? Like, you come at it from a small place and you say, can we do this together? Could we, strive to change this, or, whatever. The other piece of advice that I would give you, I don't know that it works so much when it's just one person on board. But for James and I, with our struggles, we didn't really talk about the heart of the issue for years. Not because our therapist didn't know it. We went in and told him everything, right? But he was like, we're never going to solve this problem until you love each other better, until you love each other as well as you can. And so his first assignment, if you will, for us was to do 5 nice things for each other every day. It didn't have to be big. It was like, instead of just walking out the door and ignoring them or not saying goodbye or whatever, you make the effort and you give them a hug or a kiss or whatever. To this day, years later, we still go and get each other sodas at the store. It's just part of our like family culture, and it's a way to say I love you. I went and I did this for you, right? It's just little things, and I think it's the same as why prayer is important, is because they're on your mind, and it shows I was thinking about you. I went to the store and I got something just for you, right? Little things like that. So when you're cultivating that language of love in your family, then when you have to have a hard conversation, it's like we've talked about in the past, where you have that positive bank account, right? When you say something negative and hard to somebody, it depletes that so fast.
Yeah.
And so you're always building up.
But when you have this therapy session with your therapist and they're giving you this advice, are you feeling gypped in a way that your spouse, I'm not making any assumptions about James, but didn't keep his end of the bargain or his end of the promise or his end of the deal? And you're trying to find 5 things that you love about him, even though they're not living up to what they said they would.
Absolutely. I mean, I did kind of, I don't know if this is true, but the story I tell myself in my head is I would listen to the therapist and I'd be like, yeah, he's on my side. You know, I'd be telling him, he's not saying this out loud to James, but I know that he's on my side. Is that true? I don't know. But that's how I felt in the moment. I felt like he was supporting and loving both of us, but I felt like he saw my perspective. And so I felt like there was validation there, but I also knew he was right. It didn't make it easy. You know, it doesn't, like, I'm fairly easy to please, but when people chew their mouth open around me, it bugs so freaking bad. My husband is a fantastic, like, provider, and he's a fantastic dad and all these things. But when that man chews near me, I want
so funny
to lose my crap.
I can't stand chewing sounds either.
It's the freaking worst.
Drives
I
me
can't,
crazy.
like, it's genetically encoded in me. I can't deal. And we've been married for 21 years almost, and he still does it. He doesn't think about it. It's just like, it doesn't bother him, so he doesn't, I mean, and I'm just like, he's not doing it on purpose. He's not doing it on purpose. Like, I just have to remind myself, you know. But sometimes I just feel like, I'm so easy to please. Why can't you just, this one thing, you know? Anyway, but I could focus on that. Or I could say, I mean, this man has a mental checklist in his head, and he runs through it every day of, okay, I did this with this kid. I did that with that kid. I haven't done that with this kid. I need to go do that. You know, he sees all of our kids every day. And he always says, I'm on Team Carley, right? Like, he says and does these things that I could choose to forget, or I could focus on the good, right? And that's true of anybody and anything. If your neighbor focused on the good that is in you, you wouldn't have these problems at all, right? But you have to practice, and that's part of the 5 good things. It's if you could do 5 good things and think about 5 good things for your spouse, the world would be a different place. Yeah. Right? Or a sibling, whatever relationship you need to work on. So
yeah, that's great advice. It takes me back to the beginning of this whole conversation. I remember when I went to Dr. Cope, he's explaining Botox to me, which is something I never would have done, never would have considered. And by the way, for the many people on Reddit and the many people on TikTok and whatever platform that says, oh, she's like she complains about money and being poor, but then she goes and gets Botox and she goes and gets filler. Like, disclaimer, it is an exchange. It is a trade. So I get the Botox and the filler for free, and then I post about it and send clients and patients to him. So back off. But I got Botox for the first time, but I didn't get it in your regular crow's feet, forehead, like jowl area. He did it in my masseters. And I was like, what the heck is a masseter? Right. And it's my big jaw muscles. He's like, do you get headaches? And I was like, no. He's like, because lots of people that have huge, like the mewing muscle,
clench their jaw.
They're clenching their jaw, and it gives them chronic headaches. And I was like, I don't get the headaches, probably just because I'm so used to, but I did break a tooth. I felt like a big hillbilly. I was like, what? But I must grind my teeth or like this clench.
It's how you deal with stress.
Yeah. Or even when I'm sleeping, because some people sleep with mouth guards, you know, But I was like, what is a masseter? He's like, Julie, I saw your masseters a mile away. I was like, oh. And then I'm like self-conscious.
He said that to you?
Yeah. He's like, I could see those in the parking lot. And then we're just laughing, but I didn't even know what they were. I just thought it was the shape of my face.
Yeah.
I mean, there are dudes that try to get big jaw muscles by like, it looks like what's the clamp that opens your cervix? It's like one of those that
my gosh.
You'll put in your mouth and practice jaw muscles to get the jaw muscles bigger. Anyway, this is kind of off topic, but I didn't know that I had big masseters until he gave me Botox in my jaw. It was a humongous needle, like bigger than regular Botox injections. Oh. And it chills out the muscle.
That hurt?
It didn't hurt that bad. No, it didn't. But then it reshaped my face, and he showed me a before and after. And so I look like square. My face is square.
Really?
And a month later, after the injection, I go back in and we do a side by side, and it's nice and oval. Huh. And the jaws are like feminine. I'm not a dude.
Interesting.
But I guess my point to all of this, and it was like, I almost didn't want to know that it was that way because, ignorance is bliss. But once I found out, now I can see it in myself, and I'm like, oh gosh. And now I'm self-conscious. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I need it back because I look like a square, jaw. And it's like, I almost wish that I didn't know. And I guess sometimes that's my fear in podcasting and talking about all of these things that maybe women don't know about. So I guess sometimes when I'm podcasting, I worry if I'm like awakening the dragon in women. Which, like, to me, I'm like, yes, go. Like, know your worth and your value and fight for yourself and stick up for yourself. And I'm not saying go and, like, attack him. But, like, hopefully, like you said, it's empowering for women to be like, wait a second. Like, he is totally controlling me.
This is two sides of the same coin, right? Like, there will be women listening in a situation that need to move. Ladies, move. If you hear this and you get that feeling in your gut, it's you. Move, right? But there are some women who, like, I could feel it coming for us for years. I could feel it coming on for years where I knew that our communication wasn't good. I felt distance between my husband and I. I knew that we needed to do something different, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and I didn't have the tools and the skills to make anything different, right? That came later by figuring out what the problem was, by having real conversations with my husband, and by going to therapy to get the tools. And so if there are some women that are waking up, it's not waking up saying, you need to divorce him. It's not waking up saying, call the cops or do anything drastic. It's saying, wake up. What can you do to make it better? You don't have to get so far down the road that something drastic happens. You were married for over a decade. Like, was it 15 years?
16, almost 17.
I mean, you're married so long. If something had changed 6 years before, 10 years before, even 3 years before, you don't know where you would be, right?
Yeah. There's just so many times where I'm like, I felt like I tried. And we did go to counseling.
I'm not saying you could have changed it, but I'm saying there are people listening now that maybe can. If they change now their behavior and their spouse, together, because the thing is you couldn't have changed anything because you can't change it alone, right? It would have had to have him on board too. But if women are listening saying, I love my husband, I see these flaws, but I know why he does them, but we can fix it, right? I can call attention to it and say, do you realize that we do this just like your parents do? You see how you don't like it in them? Let's change it. Let's not do that, right? It's not too late is my point, right? Seeing the problem isn't the problem. It's leaving it that way that's the problem. Because left unchecked, it will cause huge problems down the road. But if you see him now, don't ignore him.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I was like, let's go to counseling. And that was met with a big fat no.
Yeah. Well, we didn't go to counseling until I was like, okay, listen, counseling or I'm out. I cannot do this anymore. And it was not abuse. It was, I think it was ironically, the biggest problem was communication. I mean, I say ironically because I joke with him because when I was in college, I did take a communications class that was about, part of it was active listening. And there was this mat that we bought it with the class, right? But you put it on the floor, and as you're talking to your partner, you're supposed to step on different parts of the mat to show what phase of listening and responding you're in, right? I don't remember the terminology. And then you trade with your partner. And you were supposed to do it throughout the semester and write a paper on your progress. And he refused to do it with me. He was like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever seen. And I was so uncomfortable doing it too. It was so, because in my family, conversation was natural. One of the things that I learned in therapy was that he was always waiting for me to say, what do you think? Because in my family, we just say what we think, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
I just say what I think. And I think that's normal. But in his family or in his mind, that like, he's not going to just tell me his opinion. I have to want it.
He needs to be invited.
Yes,
to
exactly.
share his opinion.
Exactly. And so it was awkward for me to be standing on a mat being so intentional and like methodical about having a conversation. And for him, it was uncomfortable for all of it, right? It was just like, so I just had to make crap up on my final essay, right? Which was dishonest, but what was I supposed to do? I was like,
yeah.
So anyway, that's why I say ironically, because I tease him now. I'm like, if we had just done that assignment.
I love that.
I mean, it's been really good for us. And I feel like, just like with my miscarriage, I feel like all of that therapy, all of that learning and growing, it obviously helped us, but I can help other people through it, right? So much of what we go through that's hard, yes, it's meant for us, but it's really meant for us to help other people.
Yeah. That's why I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but when I was in a therapy session for myself, but trying to like save my marriage because he wasn't willing to come, right? I'm like, well, I'll go by myself. And that's when the therapist was like, man, let's put your marriage on the shelf. He's like, we're not even going to discuss that. And I was like, excuse me?
That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here. He's like, no. I don't even know if that's even salvageable at this point. He said, right now we are focusing on you. And he didn't say getting you out, but getting you to a place where you are self-sustainable. And I was like, what? And that's when he was like, get a separate account, start putting your money there, ask the church for help, start like flooding that account with any money that you can say, and I was just like, whoa, like he was preparing me for the bomb to like officially drop. And I'm sitting there trying to save it still.
Well, he sees the holes in the boat and you're just taking the bucket trying to get the water out, right?
Paddling to death. Yes.
Yeah. No.
Slowly sinking.
You have to realize that you can only do so much on your own.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day.
So I'm here trying to tell the women, like, I hear you, the ones of you that are trying and are met with zero resolve.
The boat is sinking.
Yeah.
You're trying
and Carley
so hard.
is coming from a place where both are willing parties.
Yeah. And you, I mean, also you have to realize that happens not usually at the same time, right? Yeah. It's not simultaneous. It's like, I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm biting at the bit. And then eventually he comes to the table and he's like, okay, I'm ready. Right. It's like patience is a virtue. It's a lesson we learn all the time. And I feel like one thing that has helped me a lot, trying to figure out how to like phrase this, but I had a conversation with somebody where he just, okay, so Julie and I, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we believe that we existed before we had bodies, right? That there was a premortal existence, that our spirits are eternal things that existed before we were here, right? And this conversation that I had was this man, he was asking me how my husband was, and I, was just kind of like telling him a little bit, just saying, oh, things are okay. It's just hard for me right now or whatever. And he said to me, we don't know a lot about the pre-existence, if you will. He said, but you might have promised him before you got here that you would do this with him, for him. And there was something about that conversation and how it went that it was just I was able to take myself out of that moment of righteous indignation, righteous anger. Yes, I had lots of reasons to feel let down and put out and lied to and all of these things, right? But that's like such a blip on the radar of life. And I was able to put myself in his shoes, and I was able to see him in a place of love. And like, maybe I did say, I will do something hard because I love you enough to do that, right? If you can hold things in the perspective of eternity, if you will, and how this life is a blip on it, right? We lived before, you live here, and then after the resurrection, we live again, right? That's why we believe in Easter that's coming up, right? Yeah. Jesus died and lived so that we all can live, right? So on the radar, this is such a blip. And I was able to refocus and be like, you know what? This life isn't about me. We live in this realm where we're taught to think about ourselves, right? What's good for me, my career, my education, whatever it is, what I want for dinner. But what if we flip it in a healthy way, not neglecting ourselves, but just remember, like, actually, I had these kids because I wanted them,
right?
Because I wanted to raise them. I got married because I love him, because I want to help and serve him. And if we flip the script and we start thinking about other people more than ourselves, I mean, it sounds preachy and it sounds trite and it sounds
hard.
Old, and it is old. But once I was able to do that, that perspective changed so much for me, because that switched my brain from divorce to staying married. I will do this for him, because the wise part of me probably could have said, I will do this for you because I love you. Like, that's the kind of love that I want. I just want to have the kind of love for my spouse that endures through, that can look past the here and now, the moment and the hardship, and see the future, and look back and say, you know, the happy, wise, newlywed me would say I would do anything for him. You get worn down over time, and with kids, and with society's expectations and all of the things, and you forget how you felt.
It's hard to hear you say this, because like, I wish that he had said that about me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wish that he had.
Because you felt that way about him.
Yeah. And I would have for him, and I did, and I tried. And so hearing, I just wish that he would have had the same courtesy, At least I can go to my grave knowing, again, that I did all that I could. I made all the efforts that I could possibly think of. I did all the praying and the fasting and the pleading and the hoping and the wishing and the wanting and the all of it. And my conscience is clear.
Absolutely.
So
there's no, regardless of what I'm saying about my situation and about other people changing their situation, there's no judgment when it doesn't work, right? When you have done all that you can, I would never say anything different. Yeah. I would never judge you, because I was not there. And by all accounts, I agree with you, right? Yeah. I just want people who are still in it to have hope, and those who need to be out to feel confident in their choices.
It's like you said, to have the backbone to say it.
Yes.
I wanted to say this before we end this. I follow a guy on Instagram. I think his name is Nick J. Wood. He's divorced also. I think he had a rough patch. I don't know if he was unfaithful or if he went to substances. I don't know his life story, but they ended up getting divorced. I think he mentions it was because of his choices of some kind.
So he owns it.
Yeah. He's very frank, very bold. And he was talking about how his dad gave a talk in church. And he's like, my dad when he gets assigned a talk, he thinks about it for like weeks. Yeah. Every single line of every single paragraph of his talk is thought out. And he said one of the things that he said over the pulpit is like the best thing that could ever be heard from a pulpit. And he said, when you hit rock bottom, it is then that you are in direct contact with the rock. And I was like, that is so cool. That's when you are like face to the face with Jesus Christ, the rock. And the rock of our salvation. You are in direct contact with the rock. And because I know for me, I felt rock bottom, and like you're saying, I would never judge you. And I wasn't there, because so often we ask ourselves, I know women in my position or that have been where I've been or are going to be where I've been, you sit there and rip on yourselves for not doing enough and for not, trying hard enough or not being enough for him. And then you are self-deprecating. Yeah. It's a spiral. And it's this rock bottom feeling, but knowing that really Jesus is my bridegroom. Yeah.
Do you ever watch The Chosen?
I haven't seen a whole episode, but I know a lot of people love it.
It's incredible. I need to watch more of it. But I was listening to a gal came and spoke to our stake of women, and she played a part. And I don't think I get weepy on the podcast, but as you're speaking, I'm thinking about this experience, and it's making me teary, because So she plays this part where, the woman with the issue of blood, who just knows that if she can touch any part of Christ, that he will heal her. And she touches his garment. And what happens?
She's healed.
She's healed, but he felt it. He acknowledges it. And in the movie, they just do such a good job in this series of demonstrating what was likely to happen, right? But the clip that she played for us, Christ acknowledges it. And the apostles are like, you're in a crowd. Anybody could have touched you. And he's like, no, I know that a faithful woman touched me.
Virtue left me.
And he found her. But in this exchange, she, like, going up to touch him, falls on the ground, and he's asking who touched her, touched him, and she acknowledges it. And I can't do a very good job describing it, especially since it's been a long time since it's been a couple months since I saw it, but it's just this beautiful exchange. And this gal who was speaking asked for comments, right? And my mom raised her hand, and because she was with me there, and the gal didn't see her, and then she closed the time. And so my mom didn't get to give her like her comment. And so my friend afterwards was like, what were you going to say? And my mom got teary-eyed, which makes me teary-eyed. And she just said, I loved how she did all that she could, and she fell to her knees, and that is where he met her. Was when she had nowhere else to go. She did all that she could, and she was desperate just to touch a piece of him. And she falls on the ground, and he finds her. And she just said, we end up with nowhere else to go but our knees. And that is where the Savior will find us. And so for her, that was her rock bottom. That was her last straw. That was all that she could give, but she had the faith, right? And I think, I know not everybody is religious, but if you're going to stay on this topic of the Savior, there's the woman at the well. Do you know that story very well?
Yeah. I mean, just that she didn't know who he was, right?
Right. Do you know anything about her?
Well, wasn't she a Samaritan, or he was a Jew?
So she had been married or with men for like 5 different men. And yeah, she was one that would usually avoid going to the well. Like most people avoid going to the well at that time of day because it was so hot, but she would go because she didn't want to see anybody because she's ashamed. And the apostles were like, Jesus, why do you want to go this way? Because people would go way out of their way to go away from that area because they all hated each other and stuff, right? Like there's stuff like this that basically is like, she shouldn't have been there, he shouldn't have been there, but they were, and he knew her. He's the one that said, I know you. I know that you had these, relationships with men or whatever. Anyway, he sees her clearly, but the rest of society avoids her. That's why I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so long since I studied this, but I think that's one of the reasons why she went at the hottest time of day or something, was because she didn't want to see anybody else and they wouldn't want to see her because she is, this
tainted.
Yes. Yes. Right. She's the lowest of the low in society. Well, do you know who the first person that he showed himself to and revealed himself as the Savior?
It was to a woman.
It was to her.
Oh, that was her. She was Mary.
It was her.
She's Mary Magdalene?
No, it's not Mary Magdalene, but she is the one. He came, he says, I am he, I am Jesus Christ, whatever. I don't remember how he says it in the scriptures. But then she goes and tells everybody. She runs to town to tell everybody about him. He's like, he reveals himself. I'm pretty sure it was her that he revealed himself. Like nobody knew outside of his apostles and whatever.
Are you saying when he was resurrected?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not when he's like on the earth in his ministry.
Okay.
He reveals himself to her as exactly who he is.
Okay.
If I'm remembering right. I could be wrong, but this is how I'm remembering it, is that he loves and respects all women, even those in the lowliest of status. He chose her to be the one to, and she was so ashamed. But after meeting with him, she was so excited to go. Like she loved him and was so excited to go and run to town, to the very people that she avoided, to go and proclaim that the Savior was here. Right? And I just think that is such, I should go and study that and tell come back on the podcast and tell you all of the details in correct sequence and order and whatever. But I invite any of you to go and study the Woman at the Well story, because what you'll learn is that there is nobody too lowly for the Savior to love, and that he is so happy to meet us where we're at. He went to that well at that time of the day to meet her specifically. He wants to know you. He wants to love you, right? And so even if you are in the situation where your husband won't love you back, and he won't go to counseling, and he won't respond to you the way that you will, there is a man who will and is waiting at the well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, because it reminds me of how all these prophets apparently have all the time in the day to go up the mountain, right? Well, where are the women? They're home taking care of kids. They're tending to the sheep. They're making food. Like, we don't get to go climb up the mountain to meet the Savior.
Not biblically.
Right? Yeah. Of course. I mean, it goes to the temple, right? In our day and age. But like, you think back that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, sometimes we say to ourselves, I don't have time to go, sit with the Savior for 2 hours, like in the temple. Maybe they don't have time to go to the temple, or I don't have time to go and read my scriptures peacefully for an hour. Mm-hmm. He does, right? Because he's a man or whatever, and I have work to do, and I've got kids to, but Jesus comes to women where they are. He meets you when you're doing the laundry, and he meets you when you're cooking the food, because you are in service to your family and to your kids. And if you're in service to your fellow man, you're in, Mosiah 2:17, you're in the service of your God.
Yep.
So we should have ended it right when you said,
he's waiting at the well.
He's waiting at the well. Yeah.
But he is also going to meet you on your knees.
Yeah.
You don't have to hit rock bottom, but if you do, he'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to hit rock bottom, or you can choose to hit your knees.
Yeah.
Either way, he'll be there.
So that's how we want to end this, because that is just the perfect little soundbite to leave you with a little bit of hope and
a little bit of Jesus. It's Easter week, guys.
That's right. Even though they'll hear this later, but we're thankful again to Sundara Medical for hosting us here. And remember this event coming up on May 9th, for any woman that is trapped in family court or in a relationship that she's unsure how to get out of, or a single mom who's just depleted and out of resources. Check the link in the description for more information about that. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
So now you know what it means to be gritty. It can be dirty, but you're still so pretty. Now make a pledge and never take no pity.